Do you sometimes feel like we have too much stuff to deal with in this world? Science, technology, literature, music, languages. I can think of so much more. So is it possible that some things may not be necessary and should not exist? Like philosophy. Why does it even exist in the first place? Why does our world need philosophy? To answer this question, I'm gonna cover 4 main points: thinking, morality, enrichment, and interdisciplinarity. But before that, let's look at the meaning of the word philosophy. This term comes from the Greek word philosophia, which means the love of wisdom. If you ask me what philosophy is, I would say philosophy is the love of wisdom and the art of thinking. Well, that's just too general, ain't it? Yeah, maybe, but the earliest philosophers used the word philosophy to mean the academic study of anything, so it's hard to be specific. But now philosophy focuses more on the nature of reality, human existence, ethics, and knowledge. Now let's get to our first point, thinking. Here's one thing my friend said that I really like. While the objective of other subjects is to learn about something, philosophy is to think about something. In history, we learn about past events. In mathematics, we learn about algebra. In economics, we learn about economies. But in philosophy, we think. We ask questions, we find answers. Plato once said, "Philosophy begins in wonder." Have you ever wondered whether we really exist or who created the universe? If you have, you're already engaging in philosophy. In fact, humanity without philosophy would be impossible because we're philosophical beings by nature. While non-human animals may have practical intelligence, humans have the capacity for language and rational thought. This perhaps entails that we can and will naturally use our minds to investigate the world more deeply for its own sake. In his Metaphysics, Aristotle famously claimed that all human beings by nature desire to know. And this desire, this curiosity, motivates us to seek more fundamental explanations of the world and our place in it. Philosophy challenges us to question our assumptions, conventional wisdom, and the status quo. For example, "You can't teach an old dog new tricks" is a saying that suggests older people are less adaptable to change than younger people. But how can we explain the fact that there are tech-savvy seniors out there? When we don't take things for granted, we can think beyond our current understanding of the world and develop new possibilities and perspectives. Philosophy teaches us critical thinking and logical reasoning, which help us evaluate arguments, detect fallacies, and identify biases. For example, we can utilize the modus ponens to spot logical fallacies. This is the basic structure of the modus ponens in case any of you wonder what it is. These skills are essential for making informed judgments about complex issues and for problem solving in various fields. Without philosophy, humanity may lack the ability to think critically and reflectively, which could result in a less intellectually curious society. John Stuart Mill once said, "It is better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied." Think about it. When we start thinking about life and death questions, what's the difference between us and other animals? Well, you may want to be a satisfied pig, but I would rather use the intellectual capacity we have to seek truth and pursue a life of wisdom. Morality. Philosophy is usually not an obvious feature of modern life, but it shapes nearly every aspect of how we live. An aspect of life that is implicitly dependent on philosophical reflection would be morality. While science describes the world, ethics tell us how the world ought to be. Philosophy encourages us to explore ethical and moral questions and provides guidance. It raises questions like, why should we be moral and what are our obligations to others, which help us develop a more sophisticated understanding of our moral and ethical responsibilities. Questions like, is telling a white lie moral and should honesty be put above everything else, help us better understand and reflect on our beliefs and values. This introspection of right and wrong can lead to greater consistency in our actions and decisions, which is essential for a functioning society. We can also better understand the beliefs of others, which can lead to greater empathy and tolerance. For example, say you think lying is sometimes acceptable as it may help prevent harm, but you have a friend who thinks we must be honest at all costs. By engaging in a philosophical discussion, you may have a deeper understanding of the reasoning behind their belief. You may discover that they are deontologists. Without moral philosophy, we wouldn't be able to envision a better world, because we wouldn't be able to examine and revise the values and practices that currently constrain our lives. For example, with our moral compass, we may combat existing policies that contain racial, class, or gender discrimination and fight for equality. Enrichment. How does philosophy enrich our lives? The first thing I can think of is intellectual humility. Have you ever come up with some idea and thought you're so damn smart, so damn creative, but in the end found that someone had already thought about your idea? Yeah, I experienced that too. When we get exposed to different ideas of philosophical thinkers, we may realize that we're not really as smart as we think, and there are a lot of people who are smarter than us out there. That's how philosophy teaches us to be humble. Philosophy also asks questions like, what is the nature of reality, and could we ever be certain about anything? Through philosophy, we can recognize the limitations of our knowledge and understanding. By acknowledging the complexity and uncertainty of many philosophical questions, we become more open-minded and less dogmatic in our thinking. Philosophy also gives us a direction to find the meaning and purpose of life. Besides a repetitive life and low-level sensory pleasures, humans ought to have a higher-level pursuit. Everyone wishes to transform their lives, and philosophy teaches us how. It teaches us what it means to be a human, how we should live our lives, and encourages us to really think about those big questions in life. For example, what is the ultimate purpose of life, and what does happiness really mean? When we contemplate those questions, it gives us a sense of clarity as to what we really want to achieve in life. Besides that, as philosophy teaches us about morality, we can develop our superego and get closer to self-actualization. And finally, our last point, interdisciplinarity. We all know that there is no shortage of big challenges facing our world today, but to solve complex problems like climate change, artificial intelligence, or global conflicts, we need more than just science and technology alone. We need philosophy. One great thing about philosophy is that it provides the foundation for many of the sciences and other fields of knowledge. For instance, logic is an integral part of philosophy and it serves as the foundation of mathematics. In fact, it is the foundation of all knowledge. You may not notice how philosophy helps with other disciplines, but many scientific and intellectual advancements may not have occurred without the philosophical groundwork that inspired them. If you think about it, all inventions and innovations start with a question, which originates from our thoughts. Just like ChatGPT, OpenAI created it with a question in mind. How can we help people find the answers they are looking for more conveniently? Some may claim that modern empirical science can proceed without philosophy. The physicist Richard Feynman has said that philosophy of science is as useful to scientists as ornithology is to birds. I don't think that is true. The basic concepts that guide empirical research all contain implicit philosophical assumptions, and philosophy is useful for becoming clear about those assumptions. Philosophy helps to clarify important concepts that are fundamental to our understanding of the world, such as truth, freedom, justice, and morality. By providing clear definitions and exploring the underlying assumptions and implications of these concepts, Philosophy helps us to better understand their meaning and significance. Philosophy also provides a framework for understanding complex concepts by breaking them down into their component parts and examining their interrelationships. So I would argue that a world without philosophy would be a world without science. In essence, a world without philosophy would be a world with diminished understanding, empathy, and progress. That's why philosophy is so important. It is a roadmap for elevating our lives. Through philosophy, we can gain greater insight into the nature of reality and the human condition, learn to be more coherent and consistent, and develop the skills and perspectives we need to navigate the challenges of our complex and rapidly changing world. And that's it for my video. I truly hope you have gained something out of it. Please feel free to let me know why you think philosophy is or isn't important in the comments below. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye!